Welcome, Cancer, to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 16th of February for the Ascendant, the Sun, or the Moon. I'm going to share with you, first of all, the big themes of the week. Then on screen, you can see where all the planets are as we come into Monday. Those provide a lot of context, so I'll explain those. Then I'll go through each of the very powerful influences we have this week, frame by frame, to give you a clear picture of what to expect. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A warm welcome. If you're new here and have yet to subscribe, please do so and help the channel to continue to thrive. So this is a week that has a solar eclipse in Aquarius for the first time in 8 years. But it ushers in a new eclipse series, which is going to see you thinking a lot about the ins and outgoings around your finances, but also where you're most invested emotionally, spiritually, or even romantically. And it's going to go on for the next 2 years. But the solar eclipse, which occurs on Tuesday, is also in a tense right angle with the planet of freedom. What does that mean? On Wednesday, because the eclipse occurs so late in Aquarius, the sun arrives in the part of your chart to do with liberation, freedom, independence, and travel, and is met by a beautiful reception committee, the elegant Venus, the mystic North Node, but also the communicator Mercury. And Mercury does forge a fantastic link with Jupiter, exalted in your sign, which can be very positive for you if you're having some key negotiations or discussions. But later in the week, for the first time in 37 years, Saturn and Neptune are in an exact conjunction. And for you, that occurs in the part of your situation to do with responsibilities, goals, and ambitions, where you need to show leadership, but can be linked to where you physically live too. So on the screen, let's take your ruler first, the moon. So the moon, you can see, is just in between the deep transformational energies of Pluto, but also the planet of action. But in the eighth house, Mars is much more reflective of its scorpionic role, the traditional ruler of that sign. And of course, Pluto rules in the modern sense Scorpio too. So I feel there could be a furnace of energy as you come into this week, very psychological. If you're yearning for something, you're going to yearn for it very strongly, even on Monday. And as the eclipse starts to manifest itself on Tuesday, it's going to be something that's going to be impossible to ignore. And why is that? Well, the eighth house is perhaps one of the most complex houses to understand, because in a very practical way, it can be about long-term shared finances. But it also can be things like savings, pensions, investments, legacies, inheritances, things like that. But in a more spiritual dimension, it's where we're most invested, but it can also be where we want to leave something and release it. And that's intriguing because the sun is in a square with Uranus. And Uranus is in a very friendly part of your chart again. It briefly moved into a very psychological one last year for 4 months. May have made you feel quite on edge during that period. But that square suggests if there are any friendships or involvements you've got where you feel in some ways that people are leveraging you, using power or even the dark arts, manipulation and control, there's a part of you over the next 6 months, even if it comes at some kind of financial cost, that you may want to spin out and create your own space. Totally understandable. But of course, you are a sign with a great appreciation of the need for stability and security. But the sun moves on Wednesday into the your fellow water sign of Pisces. So it's the end of its entire circuit through the sky over the following 4 weeks. But for you, it can be a great opportunity to think about things like travel, higher education. If you would like to learn how to play a musical instrument or a language, those things can call out to you as well. But also, the ninth house can be about freedom and independence. So, if there is something in your world at the moment that feels like a vice and you're not enjoying it, could be a job, could be your own business, because the eighth house can be very much to do with entrepreneurship. It may be to do with a personal relationship. It doesn't have to be only an intimate one because of Uranus being in the 11th house of friendship. But the ninth house is going to give you a desire for some fresh air, to do things that are just more spontaneous and liberating. And also, Mercury, which technically is not at its best in the sign of Pisces, is in a fabulous link with Jupiter in your sign. Now, Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces, so that creates what's called a mutual receptivity. So the discussions or the thoughts you have, the dialogue, Mercury, with what you initiate, because you're a cardinal sign, so you're very much a sign of leadership. Jupiter may be in a retrograde, but I think that can be extremely fortunate for you if you want to take control of your situation and transform it by enacting some kind of positive move. Could be booking up a holiday for later in the year. It may be about treating yourself to a new mode of transport. It may be signing up for a course that's going to expand your knowledge, but it will help you to feel that you are transforming in a way which is liberating. Now, there is actually a very positive link between the Sun and Chiron. Now, Chiron has been in the part of your chart to do with your ambitions and success full time since February 2019. And Chiron in Aries tests our confidence around our sense of identity. And I think that one of the transformations that can be very good this week is that if you do feel that you're invested in something that's working for you, you can gain more confidence. But by the end of the week, as Saturn and Neptune come into that exact conjunction, it just is a really powerful moment, not just because they're side by side, but they're side by side on the first degree of Aries or the vernal point, which is the start of the overall zodiacal journey. Saturn 29 and a quarter years, Neptune for another 165 years. So for us all, it's a huge moment. But for you, if you are someone who's quite content taking that energy of a cardinal sign, taking on responsibilities, providing direction, raising your profile, if you're very dynamic as a leader, Saturn suggests over the next couple of years that you may be finding yourself more in demand, but also playing center stage. But the converse can be true with Saturn. If you're not really enjoying your job, if it feels like it's too onerous, or there's a line manager that's too demanding, or the environment, always important to cancers, is too harsh, Saturn will amplify that. But Neptune in the mix is intriguing because Neptune over the last years since 2012, apart from the 6 months of last year when he briefly went into Aries, has really given you a passion for expanding and understanding more about spirituality, healing. If you've done a lot of traveling, it's probably been a very vivid and enriching time for you. But Neptune moving into the 10th house and being very close to Saturn suggests if you are creative, but you're prepared to structure those talents in a very defined way, you can do very well too over the next 2 years. But equally, if your job is a little bit run of the mill, rather functional, doesn't have much opportunity to express your soul energy, always important to water signs, that's something you're going to be thinking strongly about. So this is a week that can be around transformation, that could see some positive developments around long-term finances. If, for example, you're in a very close romantic relationship that's going well, I feel the solar eclipse could bake that in because you feel comfortable enough to give up your personal freedom. But the converse can be perhaps a little stronger, I feel. If you are feeling trapped, the desire to have your own space and autonomy is going to grow with the sun moving into Pisces. You can have a very fortunate discussion this week. It might be over a contractual matter. If you are thinking about buying a new car uh, or booking a travel plan, that also can be something very exciting. But just be conscious if you are someone who feels you've got a lot more to offer, I do feel it's very unfair to cancers that you're always portrayed in that more homely context. Essentially, cancers just need to feel comfortable wherever they are. But you are someone who in the past has perhaps not necessarily enjoyed uh, being in direct conflict. Maybe it's been better not to have situations like that. But I think Saturn and Neptune suggest if is something you feel very passionate about, or you do want to raise your profile, you want to be more successful, the endeavor and application that Saturn offers you suggests if you really work hard, the next 2 years can be very pivotal for that success. Now, to really understand the context of what the rest of February holds for you, please click on the link for your deep dive monthly forecast, because that's going to help you to get a lot more detail on Saturn, Neptune, the solar eclipse, but also the Pisces energy that's evolving. And then in the last week of the month, there's a very tense, turbulent right angle between Mars and Uranus, and also a fabulous link between Jupiter and Venus, which could prove to be particularly fortuitous for you personally. And also, if you'd like to take advantage of my offers on my printed charts, you can get your personal forecast full 12 months from the time of order, plus your life roadmap, and apply Astro 26 at the checkout and get 50% off. If you're interested in soul or karmic astrology, you can order your draconic forecast and chart and get 50% off by adding Draco 26 at the checkout. Take care, all the best, and goodbye.